Fairy dust. My idea that I'd like to spread today is that fairy dust is real, and it's abundant, and it's all around us. And we would do well to perhaps sprinkle a little bit of it onto everything we do. However, and unfortunately, we seem to have forgotten how to see it, or perhaps we're just not looking hard enough. It's a shame, really, because fairy dust has very magical and very special powers. Anything that it touches transforms for the better, and it can turn dreams into reality. So it's perhaps a good thing that I brought a little bit of fairy dust today for you to prove my point. And I'm going to sprinkle this fairy dust onto you. For good to happen to you. And after me is the break. So. But it's of course not as simple as this. It's not as straightforward. Fairy dust is very fickle, and it's also very subjective to context. So I've looked for a sector, for an area that we perhaps can take where fairy dust is almost visible to the naked eye. And this sector is the area of luxury, where dreams are turned into reality, where people aspire to, that is very sparkly and very glittery. So if luxury serves as a proxy, my question then is, what is luxury to you? What is luxury? Gentlemen, perhaps to you, luxury is a Bugatti Veyron, 1,000 horsepower, full carbon fiber body, and for $2 million it's yours. Perhaps it's a private jet, perhaps it's a private yacht, or perhaps it's just fractional ownership. Or ladies, perhaps it's a beautiful Louis Vuitton handbag. Perhaps luxury to you is diamonds. They are forever at least, and they retain their value over time. Or perhaps luxury is something much more inwardly focused. Perhaps luxury is much more about an experience that you undertake, a trip or a travel, or even very inwardly focused to self-reward, and you go to the spa to treat yourself, and the world will never know about it. I think she had to say something very nice about luxury, Coco Chanel, and she said, some people think luxury is the opposite of poverty. It is not. It is the opposite of vulgarity. What did she really mean by this? What she really meant is that luxury, perhaps, like fairy dust that we sprinkle, is much more deep. Okay? It's not just the glitz and glamour, and it's not just the high price tag. It is much deeper and perhaps much more magical too. It's about sophistication, it's about taste, and it's about appreciation for craftsmen that put a lot of commitment, dedication, and passion into building luxury to start with. So if luxury serves us as a little bit of a proxy to what fairy dust is and where it comes from and how we can sprinkle it, we need to understand it better. And for this, I'd like to introduce you to Louis XIV, great French ruler and maybe one of the greatest monarchs ever having walked this planet. But you're clearly not here for a history lesson, so let me point out Louis XIV's shoes. And you can see he's wearing high heels. Ladies, comfortable to walk in high heels? All right. Not much answer here, but gentlemen, comfortable to walk in high heels? Oh, absolutely. Okay, don't be shy. By all means, gentlemen, I'm surprised if you haven't tried. You've invented high heels many hundred years ago. And you've also worn high heels for a very long time. Okay? And it is really fundamental, in a way, to luxury. It has to do with alleviation. Okay? Ascension in society. Louis XIV was only 1.60 m in height, so he complemented his bodily height by putting on high heels. But even if he were 2 meters tall, he would still have put on high heels to alleviate himself in society. But before we come to the point of what does that have to do with luxury, perhaps, and fairy dust too, have you noticed his robe? It's massive, absolutely massive, to the point where Louis XIV could not walk on his own. He had to have people helping him going from A to B, certainly in high heels. What is this? What is this? This is status. It's a concept called status, and it's transitional, it's fleeting, it moves like fairy dust. This is demonstration of power, okay, social power. Look at me, I'm the king, okay? And you are to follow me. It doesn't matter that I can't go from A to B. I don't need a super shiny red sports car to go from A to B, because this is about something else. This status concept moves over time, okay? Social demonstration of status as in society has moved about 100 years ago into status as in demonstration of wealth, okay? Industrial revolution, we all have access to more goods. I can now show you what I own, my possessions, my beautiful watch, my shiny sports car. Status is moving and it's transitioning again, particularly in the Western world, where it's much more about where Coco Chanel put it 50 years ago, sophistication and taste. And what that means, I'd like to show you in just one example of how this affects our real world. So this picture of a Maybach I took in London Mayfair. It's a very expensive car, it's about $1 million. And look at it, if you haven't noticed, it's chrome wrapped, okay? How much more ostentatious could you be to tell me, look at me, I've made it, okay? Demonstration of status. I also took this picture in London Mayfair of an Aston Martin DB9. Much more understated, I would argue, more beautiful as well, perhaps more sophisticated too. And my point here is this: Maybach is out of business, okay? Stopped production in 2013. No longer is there sufficient demand for this type of ostentatious demonstration of wealth. Not sufficient to justify producing these cars. Whereas Aston Martin, on the other hand, I predict a very good future for them, particularly on this curve of sophistication taste, where fairy dust is materializing as a new status symbol in the world of luxury. Now, fairy dust doesn't just magically fall from sky. It doesn't just materialize without hard work and dedication and effort. And I've tried to express this in this picture of the craftsman transitioning or passing on the beauty, the craftsmanship, the heritage, the passion, the focus, the dedication to that young boy. Now this is something very unique in luxury. The passion that goes into building these products is almost synonymous with an obsession for the product and the culture that these companies have. To the point where the customer comes a long way after, okay? This fairy dust will materialize once I've built the best I can in its best perfection. Customer centricity is very opposite to that in luxury goods. Now, if you think about sprinkling fairy dust for you, well, what can you master? What is the domain you're really good at? Where can you be passionate and really dedicate your time to in order to become mastery of your domain? Ladies and gentlemen, for my next point, I'd like to show you two handbags. Okay, as you can see, they are both black, they are both about the same shape and the same size. And ladies, please do excuse my ignorance if I claim for just a little bit that these two handbags largely fulfill the same purpose. They are here to transport things, let's just say, for a minute. Now, gentlemen, it's your girlfriend's birthday, or your fiancé's birthday, or perhaps your wife's birthday. And I would like to see a quick show of hands. Who is going to give her the left handbag? Right, I can see a few on that side, okay, thank you. Who is going to give her the right handbag? All right, quite a few over there. Okay, there are people who don't give handbags, that's fine as well. Okay, ladies, your turn. Which handbag would you like to receive? Who would like to receive the right handbag? All right, quite a few connoisseurs here. Okay, who would like to receive the left one? Now that I've given it practically away. Thank you. Okay, let me tell you a very quick story. The right handbag, some of you might have noticed, is an Hermès Birkin bag, named after famous actress Jane Birkin. It's made out of real crocodile leather. It features the very traditional Hermès saddle stitch, still done by hand by the artisans in the outskirts of Paris. And the white closings that you can see on this handbag are actually white diamonds. And by now you will have figured that this bag is very expensive. It goes for about $150,000. Okay. Yes, gentlemen, so if you want to give that bag still this year, forget it. Okay, it's very hard to get. Perhaps put your name down for 2019 and you might have a chance. On that handbag here, the story is a lot less exciting because it's less than $30 in Walmart in the US. Okay? How do you explain that? What's happening here? How does this fairy dust magically sprinkle over this Birkin bag? What's going on here? Well, for sure we can argue that this is craftsmanship, quality, design, okay? You can wrap all of this up, heritage, rich history. Of course, we can all wrap this up in this term, the brand. The Hermès brand has created tremendous value over time and is now able to extract in the commercial world a huge premium through it. Well, if it's brand, then please look closely. Show me the logo. There is no logo, okay? There is no need for branding or promotional sake of branding, because luxury, like fairy dust, is very magical and it communicates in codes. For the people on the in, these codes are enough. The shape and the design, the form is enough to say a lot about you or a lot about that handbag. For the rest of us, or the rest of the world that won't recognize this, the world will happily continue to spin ever after. So it's very scarce, okay? It's hard to get. And it's also difficult to produce. So let me talk about one more point that really makes this ingredient up. And it's a concept called scarcity. This picture here is of an Aston Martin 177. And at the time, we only produced 77 of these cars. Now you have to imagine that a lot of these luxury brands actually are very strong brands, but the budgets to work with are relatively tiny. We had very little marketing money to push anything. Yet for this particular car, of which we only produced 77, we did put $1 million into a print campaign. Okay? Hard to reach people. So why would you do this? Why would you spend $1 million for a car that actually, by the way, is nearly $2 million? Why would you do that for such an expensive car reserved for the select few that actually, by the time this ad came out, had already been sold out? Why would you do this? To sprinkle fairy dust, okay, real fairy dust, by alleviating, by ascending your proposition at the very top. It makes it scarce. You can't have it. It makes it even more desirable. And it has a super effect on anything else that you produce or perhaps that you sell. Concept of scarcity. And then I'd like to show you the final point. This is the dashboard of an Aston Martin, and in the middle of this dashboard sits the key, the Aston Martin key. I brought one of these keys with me. It looks like this. It's beautiful polished crystal, okay? And fairy dust, like a lot of these concepts, is transitional. It can actually change shape. This is materialized fairy dust in a sense. So for the people who are on the rational side of the world, they can't see the fairy dust. The argument is something like this. Come on. It's a key, right? It's difficult to engineer right in the middle at this dashboard, says the engineer. It's complex. And it's very expensive too, says the CFO, for example. The rational customer perhaps says, if I drop it, I have to replace it and it costs me $2,000. The fairy dust version of this, of course, is very different because it's not a key to start with. Do you know what Aston Martin calls this? They call this an emotional control unit, okay? To physically connect with a very powerful V12 or V8 engine, with a very clever piece of engineering. How powerful is this? So my final point is this. Fairy dust does exist. It's all around us. We just have to look very hard on where it is. Each of you has a key, or an emotional control unit, or some fairy dust. Each business, no matter what proposition, has emotional control units and fairy dusts all around them. We should just spend a lot more time looking for those. So please go on. Please go find some fairy dust in your lives and please sprinkle it onto you and anyone around you. Thank you.